Okay, I'm just having a look at another version of my top tips for the Maths Methods paper for tomorrow. It's the night before the exam. I was alerted to I did have a error in my previous video, so I have deleted that, and I am just filming another one, and there are a couple of other things that I wanted to add in. So to start with, for the Tech Active paper, make sure you have charged your calculator. You don't want that running out partway through. The other thing to do with your calculator, when you go into the exam, you're going to have to reset it. You're used to that. Remember to check the mode when you go in to do some questions. So if you are in radian mode, if you've got anything to do with pi, you're wanting to make sure your calculator's in radian mode. That's usually the default. If you are working in degrees, obviously you need to make sure you've changed your calculator into degrees. Any of those questions where you're doing the area of non-radical triangles or solving for sides, that kind of thing, and you've got a number of degrees, you want to make sure your calculator is in degrees there. Some students like to take in their old green calculator from junior school, so the TI-30X B one, and that's totally fine. Some people prefer that for they find it quicker to do their fractions on there. It will leave answers in pi, and it will leave things in surd form as well, which the graphics calculator doesn't do. The other thing that I like to remind people about are all the things that you can do with that second trace button there. So if you've got a function in your graph, so I'll just put a little easy little quadratic in there. If you do your second trace, you can then find any value on that line, the x-intercepts, so they're the zeros. Obviously on this one that I've done, it touches the x-axis there. If I change that to go below the axis, I could find those zeros there. I just have to tell it where to look. So between -10 and 0, it will find this one here. And then when I go between 0 and 10, sorry, I have to do the second trace again. 0 between 0 and 10, it will then find the one over there. So that one's a great one. You can also find your minimum, so your turning point. So I can do that here. I just have to give it a, I didn't put in my bound there, so let me just do that again. So between -10 and 10, because that's what's on my screen, it will then find that minimum for me at 0, -5. I can also find if there was a maximum. I can find where two lines will intersect. So if I chuck in a little linear one there, whoops. I can then find those two intersection points. So I just have to tell it where to look again. So between -10, oops. So it will find one of them. So we've got the 2, 3. I just have to put my trace on and move my cursor over to the other one for it to then find the other coordinate. I find this a really quick way if I'm trying to solve equations. And they're difficult ones to solve. I'll put the equation on one side and what it equals on the other side, and then as the two different y equals, and then find the intersection points. The other thing we can do is find the derivative at certain points, so we can tell it where to look. So at x equals 2, and we'll find that derivative for there. Make it probably better if you only got one function there, and it will also find the integral. Remembering that you can also put into your calculator, you can get it to graph the integral. Sorry, just press the wrong one. And so you can get that integral there and put an integral into your graphing part of it and get it to graph that integral, same as you can get it to graph the derivative. So if you press that math and arrow up, you'll see the integral and the derivative there you can put into your calculator. And don't forget, you can also do your piecewise functions using that as well. So they're really good features to know how to use. Obviously you're going to want to know all your ones for your stats, so knowing your normal PDF, normal CDF, but also your binom PDF as well, and knowing how to use that inverse norm function there too. Then we have got the numeric solver. I'm glad I wrote my little reminder there. So that's one I am not as much of a bigger fan of. I'm not as comfortable using numeric solver, but I'm trying to learn more of that, where you can put equation 1, equation 2 and get it to solve that. Then we've got some things about the tech free. So knowing your exact value triangles, so your 60-30 and your 45, knowing those exact values, knowing also the ones like cos 0 is 1, cos 180 is -1, sine 0 is 0, sine 180 is 0, and the 9270s. Knowing those ones, they can often crop up in the tech free. Knowing some of your little facts like ln e is 1, log AA equals 1, log A1 equals 0. This is the one that I made my little error on. I had my 1 and 0 around the other way. So sorry about that for those who watched that. E to the 0 is 1. Another one that sometimes pops up is as when e is to the negative infinity, it will approach 0. Knowing your Pascal's triangle, or you might use the factorial method. I usually use Pascal's triangle. With mine, I'm not as fluent with the factorials, so I tend to go with just Pascal's triangle if I'm doing my NR. If you can, usually up to about row 5 is all you'll need. Knowing that this line down here and this line down here is for the 0 successes or all successes, it's always going to be 1. And then the line for the 1 success or n-1 success is always that n value there. So that's often helpful as well. I had in my previous video a note about knowing your powers of primes, so I've just gone into a bit more detail about that here. Just knowing your basic facts with these ones like 2 squared is 4, 2 cubed is 8, etc. For the 2, 3 and 5, maybe even a bit of the 4 can be helpful, but they're when I'm talking about powers of primes, that's what I'm talking about, and they will often pop up as numbers that you're expected to know in the tech-free paper. Also knowing about some of your basic fraction rules, like 1/3 squared is 1/9. If you've got 1 divided by 2/3, that 3 comes up to the top and becomes 3 on 2. If you've got a half x, that's the same as x on 2, or x to the negative 1 is the same as 1 on x. Also looking at your vocabulary. So when you're talking about derivative, the words that you might see that are referring to that are things like instantaneous rate of change, gradient function, tangent to the curve, your y dash, f dash x. They're all your derivative type things that you might see. Integrals, you're looking at your things like area under curve, probability density function using integral, when you're going from acceleration to velocity, or position to velocity, velocity to position, you'll be doing the integral. If you're going position to velocity, you're doing the derivative, and velocity to acceleration, you'll be doing the derivative, and you will see the integral sign there. And the last little one I had was just some general rules that crop up that you're assumed to know. So when you're finding that equation of a tangent, knowing the y equals mx plus c back from your grade 9 work, and finding out if you're doing the average rate of change between 2 points, that's that y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And just some of your basic area and volume rules, like knowing that your volume of a cylinder is pi r squared times height, knowing that you can get the surface area of the cylinder as well, that's the 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r h, knowing that if you've got the area of the base, you can multiply it by the height to get the volume. Just your basic ones are assumed: area of a circle, pi r squared, circumference of a circle, 2 pi r, just thinking back to some of those grade 9, grade 8 measurement rules that you have learnt are assumed knowledge in those papers. So best wishes for tomorrow, guys, and a big shout out to my 12 Maths Methods class. I hope you do your best and remember everything that you've learnt, and don't forget to take in a spare pen in case yours one runs out. So that's my last piece of advice. Good luck for tomorrow.